The name is Thomas E. Cork, C-O-R-K, Senior, and I have a son. He's a junior, so
Okay.
I'm Mr. Cork.
And what was your rank and what was your unit?
Well, my rank was Lance Corporal, and my unit was, matter of fact, it's on my shirt here now, 1st Battalion, 7 Marines. It was in Korea with the 7 Marines.
Okay. Well, tell me about where you were and what you thought when you first heard that war had broken out in Korea.
Well, that's when it first broke out. I was in New Jersey, stationed up there. Had a good time. They had a station about 2 miles from New York, and they had about 130 Marines on the base. And what they told us, we're going to have one person from each unit, alphabetical order. It's Cork on down the line. There's only 2 C's in the whole outfit there, and Cork and Cruz. So naturally, I went. So I left New Jersey going to California. And we got to California, San Diego and Camp Pendleton. Then they started training us to go to Korea. And one of the first things they did, took us up in the mountain where it was cold to kind of get us used to cold weather and basic training. Now, during my time at boot camp, I qualified on all the weapons but a 45, which is sidearm. And I had to retrain on that because I was a gunner, and a gunner carries a 45. So I had basically all weapons I had already knew how to do. So that I had to train on that. So, but then from there on to a ship going to Kobe, Japan, on the way to Korea. Now, I got on the ship at night. The next morning we got up, I saw so many ships I just couldn't believe it. All around us was the ships. The biggest one out there was the Iowa, the aircraft carrier. And we followed them on into Kobe, Japan. We get in Kobe, Japan, they switch us off and put us on what they call the LST, which is flat, people on the base. And then we got into Incheon. That's where our first landing was. I went in on the 13th wave in Incheon. When I got on the shore, the first thing I saw were the guys before me. They were killed, had them stacked up like cords of wood. And somebody quoted me as saying that I got my first baptism of combat. So we went on through to Kobe, to Seoul, Korea, and then on to the Yellow River. That's where the Chinese came across and cut us off up there during that time. Now, I'll be missing something in the middle there, so if I can go back and correct this. I got off, we put us back on the ship again and took us into what they call Pohing Dong. That part was to go up and cut the North Korea in the middle. So we went that way. Then on into Chosin Reservoir. But that time, we thought the North Koreans were defeated, in which they were. But what we didn't realize, then that's when the Chinese came into the war. And we was right at the Yellow River. We could look across and see the Chinese on the other side of that river. But we had no idea they were getting into the war. And the recon kept telling us from behind they could find Chinese back there. Well, nobody knew what happened, but the Chinese came across in thousands, and they literally cut us off up there. So Chester Puller made the statement, probably it's in the history book, that we're not defeated, not retreating, we're attacking in a different direction. So we had to start going back south to meet the United Nations troops coming north to help us out there. So finally, and on top of everything else, there's bitter cold, somewhere like 35 below zero. That's the story I'll tell you in a minute about that, what happened to me. But anyway, we got to follow our way back through. The meantime, we would run out of ammo, run out of food, and run out of all supplies. They literally had to drop, airlift our food to us, supplies, ammo, and everything else to us by parachute down onto us. But meantime, we're still moving on back. Now, one of the things happened when we tried to dig a foxhole, the ground was frozen. So what we had to do, we took our K-bars and shells, cut the ground like blocks of ice, and to put around our foxhole. And your buddy system, he has a part of the tent, and you have the other part, and you put them together, and you become a tent, and you have a pair. But at nighttime, when it snowed, believe it or not, it kept us warm. The snow on top of our tent kept us from freezing to death, really, out there, because we was out in the bitter cold with nothing on us but what we had on our backs. One of the problems we had, at least I had, was the felt boots we had. They were good boots, but you couldn't take your shoes off. You had to keep the same boot on the whole time. Then my foot actually frozen. So when they finally got me out of there to go into Kobe, Japan, to Tokyo, Japan, I'm sorry, to take my boot off, well, part of my foot came off with it. All my toes were gone, were frozen. Now this time the feeling began to come back. But that time I was in the hospital there. And there was a funny story about that hospital, because at one time that hospital was a hotel, and they had these big pretty mirrors around. So I was on the stretcher when they carried me past that mirror, and I saw myself first time looking all scrounged and whatever. I said, "Who's that guy?" And they said, "Well, that's you." So they cleaned me up, and the meantime, I'm having a problem because my foot had gangrene had set in. So they had to give me shots, take my blood every 2 hours, wake me up at night to check my blood, make sure that gangrene didn't go and fall back. But what they did actually saved part of my foot, only through the half of it was gone. But meantime, they left there going back to the States. I went to Hawaii, Midway, Travis Air Force Base in California, from there to Westover, Massachusetts, and then down to St. Albans in New York. The reason they sent me to New York was two reasons. One was I had left my car in New Jersey, so they said, "Well, I always send you back there if you want to go, but we also want to send you to this hospital because that naval doctor there, he had been familiar with frostbite. But not only I had frostbite on one foot, which severely was gone, the left foot, hands, and neck, and every place else was still. I still had this." So they corrected it, and the only thing I wound up doing was losing part of the one foot. So the other part, is okay. Yeah.
Okay. Let me go back and ask a few questions about specific times.
Okay.
When you got to Japan, how quickly was it that they sent you over to Incheon?
Well, they revamped us, broke us down into different outfits, and put us all on. The one was going in. What wave you going in? I was 13 wave, which is unlucky number, I guess. So that's what they did. It took them maybe 2 or 3 days to separate us all and get us all lined up. And we also had to have supplies, ammo, food, whatever that sustain you while you're moving on. So I would say about 3 days before they put us on this LST. Now, with the LST was one that lets you down on the beach. They also have tanks, trucks, and heavy ammo that you can carry on. Now, when we left Incheon, going back to Poindong, they put us on an amphib. You've probably seen those in the movie where you come down the rope and go down side there. Now, so that's what we was on that part of it. Now, we got on the amphib to go into Poindong. That's when we cut the North Koreans off. Half of them was to the south of us and the other to the north. So we started moving on to the north and took all the land until we got to the reservoir. So we stopped right there. And that's when the General MacArthur made the statement that the Koreans had been defeated. We'd be home by Christmas and all that bit. And we had defeated them. But nobody suspected the Chinese would get into this war. Communist China came into it. And the strange thing about the Chinese, when they came across, we found out later, the only thing they had on their body was their weapons, their food. They had no heavy weapons, and they had a gun, we nicknamed it burp gun. And it sounded like, that's what it sounded, like burping. And they had plenty of ammo. The food they needed was a packed rice. And one other thing we found out also, they were frozen too, because they didn't have it kind of boots. They literally had on this kind of what I call moccasin. And we found many of them where their feet had frozen. But the clothes they had on was that real heavy looking clothes. They had the regular caps, and they didn't have a helmet like most military people wear. And they were outnumbered us. And go back with a story about this. I don't know, I may be backtracking, whatever. During our move back, I told you about digging the foxhole that bit. This one particular night, this is kind of a thing I didn't tell for a long time. It's kind of humorous to a point. During nighttime, when we did get a chance to settle in for the night, we also put out flares out in front of us to make sure that if the Chinese hit them, the flare would go off. We could see, you know, who's out in front of us. So this particular night, I'm on machine gun. I had about, I think about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock watch. Me and my buddy there, we take time. I'll do it first, use a second. And after a couple of hours, I'm supposed to wake him up, and then I take a nap, whatever. But this particular night, this flare went off and shot the flare in the air, and it was a bush in front of me. Now, this bush became a whole battalion before the night so. Now, I'm on a machine gun, sitting looking directly at this bush. This bush is getting bigger and bigger as wind blow it, it can blow it. But I told something about this. This is where your discipline comes in. If I had started shooting, we probably shot each other because there was nobody out there but the bush. So something told me, just wait a few minutes, wait a few minutes, wait a few minutes. So by daylight came, this bush came a bush again. Nothing like what I was doing so at night. So my buddy wanted to know, asked me, why didn't I wake him? I said, well, I was awake anyway, so I didn't tell him that for a long time. When I told him, they made a big joke out of it. So when we go to a convention, they kind of nicknamed me the Bush guy because of that. That was one of the first story that.
Tell me about Incheon. Tell me about you called it your first baptism of fire.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for you? First of all, in the landing craft, sitting out there, hearing the ships firing overhead. What was all that?
First thing you anticipated, you scared, you're nervous. You know, say if it wasn't scared, you were telling the tale because you were. I was 18, and I was a little scared. So I said, kept waiting and waiting. You were just kind of chopping the bit for your time to get in there. So they made the flag for us to go, and they go by colors. And I think mine was yellow, 13 yellow. So when we went in, I hit the ground, and here we are. And we started moving up. Then the guys before us, some of them had got killed, and they had them stacked up. I said it before. It may sound gruesome, but that's what it was. They had them stacked just like cordwood. And if anybody been to the country know what a cordwood, stack of cordwood looks like. And they had them tagged for the grave people to come along and identify and make sure that they get the right person, the right name to be for a burial. But then we started moving on up. But I think I may have told you this earlier. When you first get there, you butterflies and all that bit, but then you kind of get, I don't say you get used to it, but you calm down a little bit. Then you realize what you have here, and then you become, your discipline and comes in play now. You need what you're supposed to be doing, you know what you're trained to do. And it may sound strange, but the idea, if you don't do them, they're gonna get you. So you got to be on alert. And so during the time, that part of it, then the second time around, it didn't bother me half as much because I just kind of that became second nature to me. When I got out on that other and fib to go over pointing down, I'm a seasoned combat for then, and on up to the reservoir and all the way back, it began to you feel you know what you're doing, and I don't think you become complacent. I think it's just I guess God takes care of using fools. I guess you become accustomed to it, that you know you're out there and you have a job to do, and you got to go ahead and do it. And then it comes in play too. When you see these movies where they train those guys and discipline, they may smack one of them or do whatever to make them do what they're supposed to do. It's for a reason, because there come time that you might have to use it, you may not. Hopefully you may not. But unfortunately, I did, and it came a thing. I know you told me I didn't know I'd bring this into it or not, but when the only time the guys kind of talked to me, the white guys, until we got into Kobe, and then they started placing us out and putting us in the thing together. Then I think they got to realize, well, here's the guy. We all in this thing together. It's one for the other. So you got to be. You got to help out each other. So then it began to sink in those guys. And I kind of, it may sound, a lot of guys may thought that I was kind of soft and gave in to them. But I realized that's the way they were raised up. They were segregated all their life, and I was too. So we never had any contact with each other to a point. I had white kids, that sort of thing. But I've never been that close with them. to live with them day by day and kind of depend on each other. That's first time with that. But I think they were at my age too, and so we kind of got together and said, okay, we're in this thing together, and we do what we have to do, and we did.
And did you see that immediately after Incheon? Did you see the
Well,
White Marines treating you?
Actually, it started before then. I think the realization set into all of us at Kobe when he started breaking us down and putting us into outfits and became platoon. And one other thing, I may be jumping with this. You probably saw here a couple weeks ago where that mortar killed those guys. Did you read the story about that? You know, mortars that would. Okay, we had those in our outfit too. And in my outfit, there was mortars, machine gunners, BAR, and all of them together. And when we move out, one guy takes over as what they call a point, and everybody else kind of follows along. But you, as a leader out there, your job is to make sure you kind of let the guy behind you know if he sees anything unusual, if it's trouble ahead. You don't holler back. It's a signal you give to everybody to be on the lookout, to have be ready with your mortars, be ready with your machine gunners, be ready with your rifles, 75 recallers, and all that bit. So I think, like you say, with to accept me, I think when looking back, I think at the Kobe, when we got ready to go on that LST, then we started putting it together and say, became you able company, A1. So then I think, but from then on in, we just kind of never gave it a second thought. That's the only thing I had for my segregation was like when I got into Camp Pendleton to Kobe. Then on, it never popped in my mind, never then. And even to today, you probably see all these caps over here. I walk into Kroger, whatever, and the Marines will know you and come up and talk to you and shake your hand and give you a big hug and say, glad I could be driving on the highway. You probably saw my car with the Korean thing on the back of. They are a close-knit organization. They're a close-knit organization. And they don't give it a second thought anymore about that. It's just something that's history and gone.
Gotcha. I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
Okay. Let's after you tell me what the Marines advancing toward the Yalu River was like. Was it heavy battle at that time?
It was heavy battle. One of the things about that, they have tanks moving. What they try to do, kind of put you in line where the ground fire is. That's what your job is, to get them out there. The big stuff is coming from the aircraft, the planes, and we'll tell you about the planes in a minute. I have a story about that. And but your job is to literally go in by one and pull them out, because they got bunkers built in, and you probably think you got them out of there, and you really don't. So you come up on there and you find them in these bunkers, right up on top of them before you know it. Like for instance, I think one time, prime example of this is a strange story. We had moved up on the hill. History tell you about all the different names about the Pork Chop Hill and all that bit. One day we were there on this particular hill, my buddy and I, we were looking down at I guess about 100 yards in front of us. There looked like a mountain. But what is happening there, so look, people walking in and out there all day long, didn't look right to us, because they would go in heavy and come out skinny, go in heavy and come out skinny. Come to find out, that was ammo. So we called back to recon and told them what we saw there. It didn't look right to us. So they told us, go ahead and try it out. So now, like I said before, I'm a machine gunner. And on that machine gun, they have about every 10 or 11 rounds is what they call a tracer. That round goes to a place you can follow it. So I'm on the gunner now. So we let off a couple of birds down to the hill. Didn't nothing happen, about a couple of rounds. All of a sudden, that whole hill started exploding. It was an ammo dump. So we had that in front of our front door and didn't realize it. But those kind of things. But on up the line, we passed where guys had gotten killed. And somebody asked me, a matter of fact, my doctor, if he asked me about this, Matter of fact, a couple of days ago, she said, when they interview you, do you have any problem with that? I said, as of now. She said, don't let them bring up stuff that you don't want to remember, because it could, after, I said, well, that's been 50 some years ago. She said, it's no big no different. If you feel uncomfortable with talking about that, don't do it. So my white brother said the same thing before I left here. She said, they're going. I said, well, they've asked me, I'm going to tell them. You know, I'm not. I don't know that I have no problem so far with it, so I don't shy away from it. And we go to different schools, kids, and talk to them. And first thing they asked, did you shoot anybody? And one of the teachers, I said, I was supposed to tell them. She said, tell them the truth. And more or less, I had to tell them. And one of the kids up here at, I think it's Barrett, asked them, did they shoot back at you? Well, yeah, sure they did. Yeah.
What was the heaviest fighting that you saw where the fire was coming back at you very heavy?
It may seem strange, but I heard fire coming back because the Chinese got behind us, and they were literally firing on. Well, we was in a box to a point. They were firing us from the south, also firing us from the north. The Chinese was coming behind us, pushing us, and they had gotten behind us, pushing. So we saw like in a box. I think my heavy fire would be going, even though it may sound strange, Incheon was kind of heavy, but they were more outnumbered us, I guess would be the word, on top of everything else. They, at nighttime, to keep you awake, they had bugles. They blew bugles at night and keep you, they did it for hours at a time, bugle blowing. Other thing they did to keep us awake, but they call it, the bomb goes off in the air. It doesn't do any damage to anybody. It just shocked the heck out of you in your ear, and to keep you awake. So that part, but to be truthful about it, I was thinking my heavy time was coming back from the river, going back south. One of the things we went going back south, when we finally broke through, the United Nations was meeting us coming the other direction. There was a British Marine, a Turkish Marine. We had never seen these guys before. We didn't know who they were. Now, we were firing everything in sight. Anything in front of us, we were firing on them. Those British Marine, Turkish Marine knew this. So what they had in their hand to identify themselves, you see a little flag on my mailbox out there? It had flags but about that size. They was waving the flags in front of us to make sure we knew that they were United Nations troops and the British Marines and the Turkish Marine. You probably heard me say something about most American military in combat wear helmets. We wear helmets. But the Chinese didn't wear helmets, and these Turkish Marines didn't have helmets. So there was something new to us to see these guys in actual combat without a helmet on. We just didn't understand why they. So those British Marines knew, they had a feeling that we didn't know who they were. So they had the American flag waving to us to let them know that they were not our enemy. They were our friends. But going south was our heavy. One of the problems going south too was the ammo. We run out of ammo, run out of ammunition, run out of food, and they had airlift to us by parachutes. Problem with that is when they come down, some we got some of it, and some of the Chinese got some of it, because when they come down, you couldn't tell where it's gonna go. So some fell close to us where we can get our ammo or whatever, and some was they got it. One other story I tell, and it may sound humorous to somebody, may not. You got to do your food, okay. One of the things I did, I tried it one time, and I've probably seen it. You've probably seen that buffets where they have the eggs. That's what I call them, the powdered eggs. Okay, the eggs are in a container, and you try to cook them, and those things just started crawling. You just keep exploding, whatever. It tastes like nothing, but you had at least some food in your stomach. And the other thing I still to this day enjoy, I still love chocolate, because the Marines had a chocolate was like in a candy bar. two ways you can do it. You can make chocolate out of it, or you can literally eat it for to survive. Because no food out there. So those two things. The other thing that I still do it today, I drink black coffee. Got the little canteen. You make your coffee and keep yourself.
When you talk about going south, when you were coming back south from the river, was that when you gathered at the Chosin Reservoir?
We were leaving from the Chosin Reservoir, going back south.
Okay.
Okay.
So how close was the reservoir area itself to the Yellow River?
It was like Ohio River. Matter of fact, we were so close to.
It's literally this type of distance.
That's
where we
right.
are now. Okay.
And we were so close, we could see people over in Manchuria walking them down, just like we had no idea. And that may be one of the things that caught us off guard too. We literally thought the war. We had no idea the Chinese was coming over. That's number one. And the only thing, the river was our blockade. We had no idea anybody would be coming across that river to us. We knew that we thought that part was secure. But our rear was well secure. We knew that. We put guards out. We made sure nobody coming up would attack us from the rear. But nobody informed us. Nobody knew really that the Chinese was getting into the war. I think that caught everybody by surprise, that the Chinese was coming over from Manchuria to help the North Koreans. The problem was the numbers they had. I think we may have had, say, 800, 900 people in our outfit. They had thousands come over. And when we find them later on, when we started our head count and all that bit, we lost quite a few. We got some of them wounded. Some of them were frostbite, like myself, and a little frozen. One of the things, I look back, I may have done a little damage to my own foot to a point because it was cold. You could feel. Then somebody told you stomp, make the blood, but my foot was frozen. I might have done some damage to it by stomping my foot. I don't know if it, but when they did take it off and all that bit, and then became a thing where I had to learn how to walk again too, because you lose your big toe, your balance is gone. So they had to make me shoes to where I could walk without. And you didn't ask me, but I'll tell you anyway. They put what they call stainless steel in the sole of my shoe. Okay, so when it bend, it comes right back. But you go to the airport. The first time I went to the airport, I don't know what they thought I was. Alarm went off, and here come everybody, security, everybody. Took me in this little room, took my shoe off. I want to know what's in my shoe. And I said, well, you can see it. It's, it's part of my foot's gone, whatever. Or what's in the shoe? And I tried to explain to them. So this bright idea at church at Stanford Field, what he decided to do was take the insert out of my shoe, sat there and looked at it and then he couldn't get it back in. So what he wound up doing, he just sit it down and got up and walked on out. Meantime, my wife and everybody's waiting on me. They know what happened to me back there. So I kept waiting and waiting. I said, this guy coming back here. He never came back. So what I did, I got up and put my shirt back in, because I know how to do it, slide down and tie my shoe. Got up and went on out, never said no word to me. But every airport I go to, the VA wrote a letter for me to give to, I have a brother who lives in Lubbock, Texas. We're out in Dallas. I had this letter from the VA to show them that, what my problem was. And this guy literally told me, it didn't make any difference to them, it's still gonna go. Now they're saying at most of the airport, if you're 75, don't have to take your shoe off. So I go at the airport, going to North Carolina to a convention. I'm on the one, I still had my shoe on, when this thing went off again. So now I still had to take it off because they didn't understand. I said, didn't you tell us if you're 75 or older, you don't have to take your shoe off? She said, yeah, but that includes you because something's going on wrong. And I told her what it was. Well, she apologized for doing it, but I still had to take my shoe off.
Were you part of the rear guard protecting the Army as you weren't retreating, you were fighting in a different direction, but as you were leaving the Chosin River area, were you part of the rear guard protecting them?
I was on the front, what we call a point. We broke it down in two parts. You had the rear guard and you had the front part. One just about as bad as the other, really. You going this way to get out. In the meantime, the ones behind still had to fight a rear guard, so they had to protect their rear, our rear, and plus to fight off the Chinese coming up behind them, fighting them, plus the ones in front of us. The ones in front of us, we moving south, and everybody was moving south, be true, and the ones behind us was moving south right behind us, but I was on the front part coming out.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, when did you realize that your foot was frozen? When did you realize you had a problem?
Okay, I'll tell you what happened. Okay, you first tell you how it goes. You feel cold. That's number one. Then you feel like a little tingling. Then you feel a warm. You don't feel nothing. It just disappeared. So when the medic finally got us to examine me, Lily told them somewhere on that tape you're gonna see the other one I have. I told them, I said, I'm okay. I'll stick around with the other guy. And they said, no, you say you had no feeling. You're the one we want because your foot is frozen. But I guess the realization set into me when they got me into Tokyo General Hospital. When they took my boot off, I looked down and just looked like charcoal. The toes were gone, the little gone. So when the boot came off, that part of my toe was gone too. So what they had to do when they operated on me to correct the where I would have some kind of stay with my foot there, they moved back about 2 or 3 inches back towards my ankle to set up so they do a graft. Now, the first graft they did was they took the flesh off my stomach and put it on there. And also they did a bone graft within the bone itself. Now, I'm around a little bit with this. There was in St. Albans, okay. My foot was off, okay, and they put a little gauze thing on the end of my stump, had me on the table looking at the doctor gonna see what they were doing. What the doctor did, or somebody did, they went to pull that gauze back, and you know my foot was just pure nerve sticking out there. And that I'm telling you, I had pains, it went all through me. Sweat broke out on me, and I literally went off the table. Scared them half to death because they know what they've done. So what they had to do, get back on the table and gave me and kind of calm me down a little bit. I'm telling you, they killed me. So now they're trying to get some on my foot so I can be able to walk again with it. Now what they did the second time, you won't believe this, they took the flesh out of here, out of my leg here, brought this leg up to this one and attached it here. I was 6 weeks in what they call a cross-leg graft. This foot over here to the skin to grow end of my stump. So it's still to the day, it's tender because your foot is supposed to be your tough, you know, where you're walking all the bit, but that's not on the end of that. It's like my flesh here is tender. So they got a great big hole here where they took the flesh off here and hooked it. They did it, and that back in those days when it was kind of crude kind of operating, they had no idea what they was doing. They did the best they could, I put it that way. But they would never do anything like that today because it's just inhumane to do that. To have somebody in that position that long. When they finally took it loose, I had another problem. I guess that guy got another problem going on here. I couldn't straighten my leg out. So it had been in there so long, it wouldn't. So they had to go. They don't have the modern therapy like they have now. They got to do it by hand, little by little. At nighttime, they had me sit on the side of the bed and kind of move my leg back and forth, trying to get it used to back in shape again. So during that time of war, what had happened? World War II was over, and they thought no war and all that bit. So most of the hospitals closed down. They made no effort to learn anything. How to correct anybody's disability they had. They just didn't have anything to do. So when the Korean War came along, here come these guys back with all kind of ailments and Mine was minor too, because compared to some other guys, where I only lost a half a foot. Some of the guys lost whole legs, and the list goes on. So I'll say this in passing. I was on one of the TV shows the other day, and then she said, "You don't sound bitter." I said, "No, I'm not bitter. Why should I be? I'm okay. I got disability. I got shoes I can wear. Fairly good health for an 84-year-old man." I said, I look back and I don't have no animosity. And I won't go into the segregation part of it, but it was still there, but it didn't bother me. So they said, "Well, you got a smiling face. We'd like to talk to you." And I said, "Well, fine."
Well, just sort of following up on that, you're not bitter. How do you feel about having?
You don't know the truth about it. I feel proud. I really do feel proud, and Marines are proud anyway. I mean, we kind of maybe a little swag a little bit, but we're proud. And I am proud of the whole thing I went through, even from time in Korea all the way back through. And what makes me more proud within the last, I'll say last 5 years, they begin, and like you guys doing now, saying thank you. And I'll tell everybody all the time about your time in service, thank you for your service. And that's all I ask. They have given me all kind of awards about the Korean War. I've got medals, things going on, and well taken care of for the veterans. They couldn't be any better because they look after my welfare to make sure that if I got an appointment at the VA, they call, let me know. The shoes I wear are comfortable now. When I talk about that shoe with that foot problem, one of the things was problem I was having at the end of that stump, which is the soft flesh, there were ulcers getting on the end because it wasn't used to being that kind of irritation to a point. So what they decided to do, and I'll tell this as a joke too, they put cork inside of it. My name's Cork too. And then they put lamb's wool inside that cork, so my foot sits against it, and if it moves now, it doesn't irritate as much as it did. So, but the list goes on, and I may be one of the guys that may be living in a dream world or something, but I feel proud about it. I have no animosity. I feel that I'm one of the heroes. I feel. Yeah.
Well, first, do you have anything else you want to talk about the war at the moment? What went on? What was it like when you looked up? I mean, you're talking about seeing thousands of Chinese coming at you. What was that like for you all?
Well, it was scary. That's kind of where I maybe the scripture, because we had no idea. First of all, we had no idea they was there. That's number one, and we didn't know what to do about it because no one. Sometimes you follow the scripture, tell you what you're supposed to do. You know, you fight North Korea, and what they look like, what the uniform looks like, what kind of weapons they have, what to expect from them. But we didn't have the idea how to fight the Chinese because we didn't know anything about them. We didn't know how they fought. One of the things that would just kind of blow your mind is their numbers. They had thousands of them. But one of the things about them, they had, I think I mentioned it before, they had the little, what they call the burp gun, whatever. But they had 1,000 rounds. They take out one of the rounds, take out what they call a chamber. It's kind of round. They must have 200 rounds in those things. And all they do is flip them out and put another one in and they keep right on fire. They come at you in numbers. Now, the weapons I had on the machine gun, which I think is 300 some odd rounds. My 45 on has 8. My assistant gunner out there, he has a carbine, I think 30 rounds. But he has a magazine too, which is you got to change it. But you got to do all this split second. You don't have time to think what I'm gonna do next. Where's the sergeant? He has to tell me what I'm doing. What the commanding officer say? Or what is my corporal say? What am I supposed to do? You got to think on your feet. You got to do it quickly. You don't have time to. You don't want to give a second thought. You got to react and not react. You got to act, not react. So you got to do it on a split notice. Nobody's going to inform you that you're supposed to fire back. Nobody tell you you got a grenade. Nobody tell you whatever to do. You got to do it on your own. then, like I said before, and it may sound redundant saying this, but your training come in to a point. But nobody in boot camp ever told us about this. Nobody. We left North Carolina, San Diego going to Korea. The only thing that they taught us about was the habits of the North Korean, how they fight, what their weapons were, what to expect from them. To a point, they don't like to confront you too much. In other words, you put a good battle with them, they're gonna back off you. And we found them to do so. We started pushing them, and they backed off. They kept backing off, until we backed them on up to the river. And we were kind of proud. We got these guys defeated. But these Chinese come over. I don't know what was on their mind or what's in their body, but they fought like crazy. They just come at you one after the other, and you got to defend yourself. And so, like I said before, you don't have time to call the commanding officer and tell you come down and what to do. You had to do it yourself.
Okay. Now you were talking about the Montford Marines.
Montford Point Marine, yeah.
And
Okay.
tell me what it was like to be part of that, and then to go through the transition where you went from being a segregated units to being integrated units.
Okay. 1942 until 49, we were on a segregated base down in North Carolina. I told a gentleman there. But the strange thing about it, until 1942, there was no African Americans in the Marine Corps. Till 1942, the President Roosevelt had to sign an order to allow African Americans to be in the Marine Corps. But when they went into the Marine Corps, they still didn't go to over at Paris Island or California for training. They created a base for them over by Camp Lejeune, across that river, and they named it Montford Point Marine. Montford Point, I don't know what that name comes from, but that's where we trained. And the part was, where we trained, it was swamp at one time. Even so, from 42 to 49, I got down there in 48, I was kind of at the end of it. They were still like a swamp. At nighttime, the snakes would crawl up in your tent. In the daytime, you would see alligators and all kind of Mexican snakes and all that bit, mosquitoes and all that. And we had to take all our training at this base, Montford Point Marine. But all our medical thing came over what they call a Hadnot Point over to Camp Lejeune. So if you got any kind of ailment, you got whatever, you had to go over to the white base to get your training. Now what would happen, matter of fact, I went one morning at 8 o'clock, I don't know what's wrong with me, but anyway, I got there at 8 o'clock, I stayed all day and they didn't see me. So they had to go back the next day to get so all the white Marines had to go through what they got first, then you had to be treated later. That part of the thing, when you went on Liberty there at Camp Lejeune, I was telling a gentleman there, we went out like Kingston, New Bern, and all that for our Liberty. We had to be very careful when we went out, but they want you to go two together. So they would treat you, they would actually attack you. Matter of fact, one time I went on Liberty, and I knew better. So I went out and got the bus over at Jacksonville by myself. Had my little uniform on. I wasn't sharp, you know. Had this young lady I was going to see that afternoon. So, but I was walking, and these white Marines saw me on the street, come walking toward me. But they was walking three abreast, and I'm walking in the middle of the street, at the sidewalk. I said, "Well, I'm safe. I'm walking." They literally hit me and knocked my cap off. I had a little white cap on, and my cap hit the ground, got all dirty. But here come the MPs and the SPs. Didn't bother those guys. They made me go back to the base because my uniform was dirty. So, and coming back to the base, they had one bus, I think every hour, and they called it the milk run. Oh, anybody live in the country part of it knew what this means. Part of that bus would bring passengers. The other part of that bus would bring farmers at the milk. Put the milk on the buses, and they called it milk run. So on the back of the bus, you had four seats back there. When that filled up, that's all. You couldn't get any more. So it means you had to miss your bus, catch the next bus. Now, what happened, if you missed that last bus, I think it was like by 4 o'clock in the morning, there's no more buses. So you AWOL from your base because you had to be there for reveille at 7 o'clock. So, but anyway, that bus was your last shot out there, and it was like I say, they nicknamed it Milk Run, which is whatever. The list goes on with the segregated part of it. We got secondhand everything to a point. But one thing we didn't get, I'll tell everybody, we got absolutely good training. We had the drill instructor were well taught. They were for discipline. They didn't take any mess off you, but they taught me enough to save my life when I actually got into combat, to know my weapon, what I've had, know how to do things I'm supposed to do, and have yourself under control when on the line of fire, because your buddy depend on you. And I say this like anybody else played football. Each lineman has his own job. You don't have to ask the other guy what he's supposed to do. He knows his job, and you know yours. So when the line moves, they move in unison, because each one of them have been trained to do what he's supposed to do, without asking the other guy, are we supposed to move now? Or whatever. You don't do that. You know what you're supposed to do, and you do it. But that part, I'll say, if I had any animosity to anybody, it would be that part of my career. As down in June, which was horrible, because the base camp we're in were shouldn't have been that way. We should have been over at camp over at Paris Island somewhere training, still down in that swamp. And one of the things that happened to me, this happened during my time in boot camp. One night I woke up and I felt something cold on me. A snake had crawled up in the. Now, I found out later the snake wasn't intended to bite you. They were looking for something warm. That's all they were doing. But nobody told me that. So it was kind of bad. But and what has happened now, the Congress, the Marine Corps, and the Commandant, and all of them, within the last 5 years, they try to make up for the humane they treated us back in those days. Now they can't do enough for us. Now, 2 years running, we were in Washington for a parade in our honor. We had the commandant to meet us and greet us. We was up there 2 or 3 days, and the hotel was free and flew us on the back. Then last year they presented me one of the others with the gold medal, and got a picture in there. And that's it's a little bit late, but it's a nice comment. So I accepted it in the minute that they gave it to me.
Is there anything I'm missing that you wanted to talk about?
Well, we kind of talked about that Montford Point thing, and you said if I can get it in there, I certainly want to get it there, because I've told people that we'd be talking. And matter of fact, Mr. Ed, that I'll be talking to today, I'll tell him I got a chance to get my Montford Pointers in there. There's quite a few of those guys still left. And we were in Washington for that ceremony. I think it's 400. They counted 425 still alive and well, and I'm 84, and you can see I was laughing when we went through there. So the guys were in the 90s. They came in wheelchairs and rocking chairs and all that bit. And the most unusual thing happened there. Like I said, it was 425 Marines at that ceremony. I was the only one that USA got a picture of. And I don't know why that happened, but I kind of look back over it. When that gentleman came to put mine on me, he looked at me and said, "Where you from, young man?" I said, "I'm from Kentucky." And he kind of teased me about the winters and all that bit, and he talked a little bit to me. In the meantime, all the photographers were standing right by him, and he stood there so long talking to me. I guess they felt, well, this guy must be somebody that we need to know. So they got a picture of me. But by the time I got back home here, my son had gotten it off in there and had a picture made up. You probably saw the wall in there. That's the picture. So I'm the only one that made that USA. Yeah. But that was quite an honor for them to do that. When they announced me there, Senator McConnell was the one from Kentucky. So I didn't know what to expect from him, really. I don't get into politics with this. But he did a very good job with us. And he said something like, we have 6 Kentuckians here. And he called our name, Thomas Cork, Churchill, and I'll call our name. introduced us to the craft. I got a chance to meet Pelosa, Bonner, Brown from Florida, Hagan from North Carolina, Yarmouth from here. I had another experience. This one, you wouldn't believe this one. The guy from New York, Connolly, he was in Korea the same time I was. Matter of fact, I had a book about him, man. And I said, I know I won't get a chance, but I just got a chance to say hello to him, and they switched him out real quick. But I was going to tell him I had his book, and that we in Korea at the same time on that bit. One other experience I had, I didn't tell you about the airplanes. In Korea, they had what they call the MiG alley. And what that was about, if my voice disappearing, I guess.
No, you're
okay.
fine, sir.
Yeah.
If you want to take a drink, go right ahead.
If you, man, okay.
You got some water right there.
Okay. There was the MiGs came over from Korea too, over from Manchuria too, and they were flown by the Chinese and North Korea, and what they call it the MiG alley. What had happened was those planes were made with the wing back. They come into the alley, they get in there and get back out, but nobody detect them. But you can't estimate the miracle. So what happened then? They had these Sabre jets with Americans flying them. They caught them in there in those MiG alley, so they downed a whole bunch of them right in there. And one of those being doing that combat was a Lieutenant General Peterson. And as a matter of fact, I have his picture in here. And he was in Korea same time I was. He was Lieutenant General. Never met him till he retired. But anyway, he was the one of the guys that caught those MiGs in there because they would come over and do damage to us because we had no defense for them. They come down in that alley where we trying to move back south. And those MiGs would come down in and just strafe us one by one. So they found out about it and said, okay, we know what to do with them. So the Sabre jets came in and caught them in those MiG alley, and they did a number on them. So they saved us. But those planes would fly over for support. They fly so low down on you, you can see the numbers on them on the plane. You can see the pilot. They find support for us coming back here. And one of the things that kind of frightened you a little bit, as they fired, the shells would pop out. And when they was hitting the ground by, that it's kind of irritating to see that happen. You not realizing what they're doing, but that they're doing. But anyway, let me tell you about this general, Lieutenant Peterson. He retired in D.C. at Langley Air Force Base. I was invited to go to his retirement up in the air. I just couldn't believe this. So when I got there, I met him. I told him, we're in Korea at the same time. I never chance. So we chat about the Korean War and all that bit. But I got a chance to get pictures with him. Got a picture of this general retiring. I was one of the honorees to be meet with him. So that's one of the things. When I said about good things happen to me, a lot of things have happened. And I know you don't have time to go through all this, but I've been on a different program, been on different situations where I was the guest of honor, and they really, really appreciate my doing. And my wife said, I think you said it, you love a camera. But I do it. I do that job. But my most concern, thanking people that took the time out, especially now with the Korean War, thank the guys in that war for what they did, and you guys coming down now. And when I get on the phone, a few minutes I'm going to call Mr. Ed and tell him, I talked to him, be prepared. He said, be sure to call me as soon as they leave. I said, okay, I will.
Yeah. That was great. We're looking forward to meeting.
Now, did you know Ameta? His name is Ed.
Ed?
Ed Ameta. But anyway, he called too. Matter of fact, he's one of the guys that told them that they should get me on this. But the guy I'm talking to.
No, I don't think I'm talking.
But the guy you're going to is Ed, Joe Head.
Joe Head.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now, he was in Korea the same time I was. Right. But we didn't know it until, matter of fact, when I met him, we got chit-chatting about time in Korea. We were at Parallel same time.
Right.
And I think he was maybe in Charlie Company. I was in Naval Company.
Right.
Okay.
No, I think that is absolutely correct.
And we always tease each other about, Able Company's on one side and Charlie's on the company on the other side, but Baker Company's in the middle. I hope I don't see anybody who's in Baker Company. But Baker Company always in trouble. And one of the things the problem was with them, they got so lax at nighttime, they just thought, we tried to call them on the wire phone. We had wire that went from one to one because we could talk to each other. And when you talk on the other phone, that other people pick up your message too. So what we try to do, we have wire from person to person. So they sent us out one night to find out what's wrong with Baker. We kept talking to them, they wouldn't answer. So we went to found Baker Company. The guy was asleep, and I'm pulling on this wire, coming down to his foxhole where he was. What he had tied his wire to his carbine. So when I pulled on that carbine, that rifle looked me straight in the eye. I said, "Oh my God! I hope this guy's fingernail on the trigger." I said, "Man, you wake up here." We were trying to call you guys. So we teach each other about Baker Company. They seem like always in trouble. But Baker Company, but Able Company and Charlie Company, we kind of. And when I found out, I said, "You weren't in Baker Company," where he said, "No, I was Charlie Company." So we did that. Yeah.